what if I just figured something out about myself on your show?
I love it.
You're such a good host.
I'm taking this to my therapy this week. Today's guest is best known for her role as Annie in Fear the Walking Dead. Please welcome to the Zoom, Bailey Gavulic. Hello.
I want to do something like special for it.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I am good. I am so excited to have you on and just actually get to meet you. I feel like we've been Instagram friends for a minute, but that doesn't mean you actually know someone. So I'm
Yeah,
excited
you know,
to
but like
actually
I
meet you.
treasure like Instagram friends, like the friends who like are always hyping each other up. And I'm like, yeah, we've never hung out, but like if you post something, I'm like, fire emoji, hey, girl, you know.
Right. Totally. Well, on Behind the Resume, we always start by talking about how we met. And we met because you were the reader for the producer sessions for the J Team.
Yeah, yeah.
So
I
cool.
love Jenny and Monica, and I'm very blessed that like they ask me to volunteer and be a reader for them sometimes. And it's always so fun. And like sometimes it's I know it's coming in advance, and sometimes it's like, can you be on Zoom in an hour? And I'm like, sure. And so yeah, you read for the Rubies originally. Then
Mhm.
they had you come back and read for Nina.
Yeah.
And like the Nina stuff, I just remember I was like, yeah, she killed it.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Killed it.
I did
Especially
not feel that way, which is so funny.
but like having like it just really it really sparkled. Like I always say that like I think so many actors are good, so many actors are fine. And it's really been confirmed from like when I get to be in the room as a reader that like there's so few that are like brilliant and sparkly
Mm.
and like you just really shined in it because also I know they gave you the redirect where they were like whatever Bailey's like giving you just like give it back because you're trying to be just like the coach.
Right.
And you like there was a moment where internally I was like, can't do that. Can't. But it's because it was so good. So
Oh,
yeah.
think that means so much to me.
Yeah.
I think like when you're in any sort of Zoom audition, you kind of just check out a little bit and you get
Yeah.
off
I
and you're like,
no,
I don't really know what just happened, you know?
nope. Nope. And like sometimes you leave audition experiences. Like I remember when I went to a few in person before everything got taken away. And I would leave and I was like, that was good. Even if I blacked out, I was like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
I'm feeling it. And then sometimes I'm like, I don't know. I think I did my job.
Yeah.
It's always a toss up, but
I walked out of an audition the other week and I was like, did I hallucinate that entire conversation after I sang? I don't know, you
don't
know?
know. Couldn't tell you.
Couldn't tell you. Um, anyway, and then I think we actually have some mutual friends as well, right? And then we kind of got in touch.
I think so, yeah. I mean, honestly, I don't know, just got
Small
connected
world.
through Instagram and everything. And then when I was even browsing today, I was like, let me just like go through her little behind the resume playlist and like see who she's talked to, which like incredible. You've talked to so many incredible people.
Yeah.
I'm friends with Michael Solomon and I
Oh,
love him. So I thought
okay.
that was funny. I'm gonna have to tell him I did this after.
Yes, please do. Oh my gosh, what a small world. I'm not surprised at all that you know
It's
people
so
that's
funny
hilarious.
once you like really make an effort in like growing in your community, you start to realize it's a whole lot smaller than you think.
Oh my
And
gosh.
we were just talking about this the other night, me and some people, but I forget the phrase, but it's like seven circles or some seven steps or whatever to
Yeah,
other people.
separation.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
it's a separation. That's what it is.
Well, let's just start from the very beginning. Where are you from?
Very good place to start.
Yes.
So I'm from Orlando, Florida.
Cut that out. Um, what were you like as a kid?
The same way I am now, a lot.
Great
Very
answer.
extra. And I've never had an issue with being myself, and my mom has always reaffirmed that through her memory of our anecdotes as well. I started performing when I was in 3rd grade because my school started a drama club and I loved it. And obviously, like, I just never went back. I just kept moving forward because it was just so fulfilling to me. But yeah, I was a lot and not ashamed of it. In high school, I would like wear things that I look back on where I'm like, haha, still would do it though. I would wear like a full princess dress on Halloween because I was like, it's Halloween. Were other people dressed up at high school for Halloween? No, but like I was. Or
Uh-huh.
like, when you would have like homecoming week stuff and it'd be like, I'm gonna kind of put something together. And I was like, I'm gonna do everything. I'm gonna be so
That's
alive.
great. That's so like what a fun way to live.
I know, like very no reservations about like being shy or like self-conscious. I feel very lucky in that sense that my mom has always said that if she could like bottle a little bit of what I have and like confidence and like give it to other people, she would make a lot of money. So
Oh, that's beautiful. Where do you think that came from?
don't know. I mean some things I can like trace. Like my dad is very outgoing in a way like makes people feel comfortable, very comfortable talking to strangers, which like I am also very comfortable with that. I went out to a place in San Diego once and my friends and I stumbled in there to get some food. They were doing trivia and my one friend was getting embarrassed because like I didn't know these answers and there were two guys at the table next to us. So I kept being like, okay, you guys got to help us out. She was like, stop. And I was like, why? They're in there. We're having a good time.
Yeah.
I love talking to people. So I think that's something similar with my dad. I don't, besides that, I don't really know. My mom has always been supportive of like the acting stuff because she modeled a little bit when she was younger.
Hmm.
And she also, we're able to empathize because she was like my person, my parent that would take me everywhere for all those things. But she also knew she was never one of those like over the top moms. She would like drop me off, come in to sign whatever she needed to sign, and leave. She was like,
Mhm.
I could never do anything with my mom watching. And I was like, great, because I can't do it if you're like nearby. I feel weird.
Totally. Yeah. So how did you get into acting? Did it start in theater?
Yeah, it started in theater, like the drama club in third grade, which was so great. By the time I got to middle school, my mom and I were trying to figure out how to get into it more. A lot of the things that were able to be made possible are courtesy of my mom
Mhm.
and her digging really deep to get information. Yeah, so middle school, I was starting to get plugged into like commercials or things in that sense. And then my junior year of high school, I got plugged in with my acting coach that I love so insanely much from Florida. And that really, I think, springboarded a lot of the television and film side because it's hard. I know you're from Southern California, but when you grow up somewhere that doesn't really have an industry, and I'm also biased because Orlando has more of an arts and television opportunity than Iowa or
Mhm. Yeah, yeah.
other random places. Um, and yeah, so it's hard if you don't know because like there's not usually like a set thing to follow. You just kind of like consume as much information and take it in and try to figure it out for yourself.
I have so much respect when I meet people I mean, I respect everyone who's just out here doing the thing, but especially, yeah, but especially people who aren't from here and either moved with their families or by themselves. Like, I don't know what that's like, and I just admire that so deeply.
Yeah. It's crazy.
So, growing up in Florida, what was the hardest part of your childhood?
I don't know. I consider myself very blessed, like very lucky. I didn't have like hardships in the sense. In like some ways I look back or I have looked back in the past where it's like, man, I wish I would have started when I was younger or figured some of these things out when I was younger.
Mhm.
Um, but also like everything in its time, what's meant for you can't pass you by.
Yeah.
So big into that, but
Mhm.
it's just kind of funny. That's probably the only thing where I was like, man, if I was really in it when I was like 12 or something,
Yeah.
like or like little kids, right? Because like if little kids that are like if they are cute and precocious and can take direction well, like and do what they're told, like I was like, oh man, but I don't know. I don't really have regrets about how it all played out. So yeah.
That's great. Did you go to traditional high school?
I did. I ensured I had the full experience. I went to a normal high school, at which point my mom did get involved and asked, "Hey, she's pursuing this thing. She's gonna have to miss school sometimes. We want to be transparent with you. What's the best way to go about this?" And all the guidance counselors would say was like, "She should really be in school as much as possible." And my mom was like, "All right, sick days it is." Like, I don't
Wow.
that's what we did. But also I am a nerd and was a straight A student my whole life. So
Wow.
yeah, it was never like something that was putting my academics in jeopardy. I was always on top of things. I was super involved in high school. I did like theater club. I ran our morning news show. I was like executive producer of that. I did student council and planned like dances and everything.
Wow.
Have to humble brag, but I was prom queen. So
Oh,
like
fun.
I checked the boxes on high school. I couldn't think of doing it any other way because I feel like I got so much out of it. So
That's amazing. Did you go to college?
I did.
Where did you go?
I went to University of South Florida in Tampa, and I graduated in 2.5 years.
Wow.
Yeah, still straight A's. And again, this is where a like really good example of what's meant for you can't pass you by and in its own time, because I decided to graduate in the fall semester. I like amped up my summer classes and my fall classes because their path would have had me only taking one class left in the spring. And I was like, that's stupid.
Mhm.
I'm going to just graduate a semester earlier. So I buckled down. I had to get like permission signed off from a teacher to take a class. And the end of my last semester is when I booked Fear the Walking Dead, which was originally supposed to only be 3 episodes, but very quickly became more. But obviously, regardless of that, I wouldn't have been able to have continued classes in the spring if I'd been traveling all that I had been doing. So
Wow.
I missed my last day of classes in one or two of my classes or something. Had told the teachers everything was fine. My finals were already turned in, and I missed my graduation.
Oh no.
But so worth it.
Yeah.
It's only
After
funny.
all that work.
It was only funny. My mom and I had just paid to like get grad announcements in time, where it was like inviting friends and family to come to my graduation and like come to a grad party. And then it was like, well, we'll just throw these out. So
Oh my gosh. What were you majoring in?
mass communications production.
Hmm.
So took some umbrella mass communications classes, but my focus at that college within the college was production. And one of my like hardest classes was my last semester, which was a directing class,
Hmm.
but in the sense of directing a live program where you are in the control room and you pre-plan the show and you write out the scripts and you make the lower thirds and then you call it while they do it live. Ready one, take one, ready three, take three, ready video. Like, and that was hard. That was hard only because that teacher didn't have like a rubric,
Hmm.
right? So like before our final project, I was like, I need to get an A. I've had A's my whole life. Like I'm supposed to get recognition at graduation for this. And she was like, grades don't matter. And I was like, that's so nice. And I get what you're saying, but also they do. Because I was like, what do I need to do to get an A on this last project? And she was like, you just have to have a really good show. And I was like, this is not helping me. Like, I need the line item so I can at least say I did everything I should, but it's fine. I
Do
got
you
the
want to
A.
direct eventually?
I think it'd be cool. Honestly, it's not something I've ever like given too much thought to. Could be a cool way to incorporate some of my degree. Um, I don't know as far as direct. I think like sometimes I'm an idea girly,
Hmm.
and so maybe I'm not the like execution girly,
But so
but
part of like the producer team.
yeah, like I can totally see me getting involved in that world in some way. I think it would just depend on what role it was and what the project was. If it was something of my own,
Right.
not something else. I don't know.
Do you write?
Uh, tries to
Uh-huh.
like where I'm like I'm a multi hyphenate writer, but I really want to make a comedy live musical.
Oh, sick.
Yeah, that I've like dabbled some stuff brain to computer a
Uh-huh.
little bit, but
That's so cool. Are you into musicals?
I love musicals.
Okay, now
I
we're talking.
I
What's your
love
favorite?
theater. So yeah, so that's something very cool to me. I think it'd be incredible. I also, you asked about like directing, but we were talking about other hats. I aspire to like have a theater company.
Oh, cool. Uh-huh.
I don't know. Some of it I think in my brain is just my way of getting to put on all the shows that I wanted to do and never got to do.
Which are what?
Like the one that I always say is like 25th annual Putnam County Spelling Bee.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if you're familiar.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I love that show. I think it's hilarious. I would love to do it. My roommate also loves it, so we joke all the time about like, I just need to put it on myself.
Yeah,
Ask my
totally.
friends, but gotta raise money for that.
What else?
Oh my gosh, I feel like I love Legally Blonde.
Yeah.
I love any sort of thing that's like upbeat. Now I'm gonna blank on all of my
I know.
favorites.
Do you like Something Rotten?
Oh, that's my favorite. That's my favorite. Okay, now I can remember things. Something Rotten is my favorite. I've seen it like
So
3 or 4
good.
times.
Oh, so
I
good.
just saw Beetlejuice this summer,
Oh,
which was
I saw it on
moment.
Broadway twice and the
I-
tour.
It probably has worked its way like into my top 5 for sure. I think it's holding the number 3 spot.
What's number one?
Number 1 is Something Rotten. I think
What's
it's
number
so
two?
good. Number 2, now I'm gonna forget again, Julie. Megan, what are my favorite musicals? She can't hear me. Oh, that's
Is Addams Family on the list? That's a really funny one.
I love Addams Family. It's not in my top 5, but I have seen it like twice, and I've auditioned for it once. Talking about blacking out during auditions, that's theater auditions.
Yeah.
TV and film, I'm like, I can trust myself. I'm confident and capable. And then people are like, do you sing? And I'm like, yes. And they're like, go ahead and sing. And I'm like, right now? Yeah, I love Something Rotten, but like sadly enough, Something Rotten, I think it's like called the Bechdel test. It does not pass the Bechdel test. There's only 2 female roles.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
They are not heavy in that script. So
Yeah.
it's like, man, I would love to be in that show. And I auditioned for
Gender reverse Something Raw in production. Just like a company. You could do that. That'd be cool.
Yeah. I auditioned for a production in Simi Valley and went to callbacks for it for Portia when they were doing Something Rotten because like I love her. But
Yeah, so fun.
yeah, wow.
Well, how did you get from sorry.
Oh, I just said Beetlejuice is incredible. I saw the Into the Woods tour this year.
I saw Into the Woods on Broadway and it was like speechless. It was
I
just
went to coincidentally bought tickets on a whim, ended up at opening night and saw Emmy Raver Lampman and I cried.
Wait, where?
At the Amundsen Theater in LA.
And Into the Woods?
She was attending because it was
I was
open
gonna say I don't think she was in the
like,
show.
no,
Oh
she'd been
yeah.
invited. And I saw her afterwards. My roommate pointed her out and I was like, here I go. I gotta say something. I'm everyone's biggest fan out on the street.
Oh, same.
I will say hello. Love your work. I
Yeah,
saw
me too.
Joshua Bassett outside UCB waiting to go into a show as I was going to my class, and I just went, big fan. And he was like, oh, thank you. And I was like, here I keep going. Yeah, I
No, I'm
cried.
the same. I think it's so important though.
I
And
know.
I get so much like fulfillment out of telling someone who's impacted me that they've impacted me because you know what it's like to be on the receiving end of that, and you know that what that feels like. You know, it's so special.
And he was so nice because also like, yeah, I was working up tears. I was embarrassed a little bit after
No.
when I was talking to Emmy Raver Lampman, like,
Oh,
I was like, you're so talented and I love the Umbrella Academy and Hamilton is so good. And she was like, oh, that's so nice. What's your name? And I was like, it's Bailey. And then I fumbled my way through that. And then she goes back to the people she was standing with. And my roommate goes, wait a minute, who do you think was with her? Of course it was Daveed Diggs. And I was like, I can't do this again. I just interrupted their evening, but I just went, what? Are you kidding? And I was like, it's also hard though when you're just like on the town like that, because it's like, I'm not just a fan, I'm also in this industry, I swear. Like, I go to those SAG events sometimes where, you know, you get invited.
Oh, I went to one last night, the day before, a few days ago. I go all the time.
It's so tight, so I haven't been able to go to as many, but I fully plan to in the new year. But I went to one for Severance at the beginning of the
Oh,
year.
cool.
Yeah, and that one was wild because at the reception that followed, the cast stayed.
Mhm.
And I hadn't really seen that before. So there were people just like talking to Adam Scott or like
Yeah.
talking to the actors. I didn't
No, I
have
had a full conversation with James Corden like a year ago at a reception. It was one of the best moments of my life, like no joke.
I
But
love
the other
those.
night, my brother and I went to a lessons in chemistry. Do you watch that show?
I loved it. I loved it. I read
Amazing.
the book.
Yeah. Oh, we went to the screening and Brie Larson and Asia Naomi King were full on at the reception on the balcony, and we were talking to them for, a few minutes hanging out, and I'm just like, I cannot believe that. Like, this is so crazy.
And those have like a little those feel a little sparklier to me because like it's an industry event.
Right,
You're
right, right.
not just like a fan on the street. Like I went to a SAG Foundation event for Ted Lasso, which
Oh,
included a Q&A with Phil Dunster and Juno Temple,
uh-huh.
and they were so nice. They stayed after to let everyone talk to them who wanted to talk to them,
Wow.
took pictures, talking to Juno and Phil, and it feels a little different because they know they're there speaking to SAG members, and it's like, I want to do what you've done. So
Right. I also appreciate when during the talk back they
mm,
talk knowing that the audience is full of actors who speak the same language. I
yeah.
just I totally understand what you're saying. Last
Mhm.
night I went to one for Abbott Elementary at Paramount,
Mhm.
and the reception after was a literal bar mitzvah. Like it was crazy. It was amazing. The whole cast came
Cool.
out, and I brought a friend who had never been to a lot before, let alone a screening. And so we're so lucky. Like it's never lost on me for a second how lucky we are to get to have these experiences.
Yeah, I went to a Ted Lasso season 2 huge rooftop party they did through SAG RSVPs, and that's
Oh my gosh. Wait, that's amazing.
it's
That's
my Ted Lasso blanket, and I loved it.
that's so incredible. Well, speaking of, if you're how old do you know?
25.
If your 14-year-old self could see you now, what do you think she'd say?
I think she'd be really happy. She would be really impressed, I
Hmm.
think, by the things we've gotten to, like, check off our little dream list. Good.
What are you proudest of in your life so far?
Outside of, like, career stuff
Yeah,
or
yeah.
Hmm. I'm really proud of the relationships and the, like, community I've built here in
Hmm.
LA. It's finally gotten to the point where I feel like this garden is more in bloom than when I go back home to that garden,
Mm.
which like is a little weird, but like, because here I have relationships that will persist and people that I'll continue to see, but there's not like a lot of new life in that garden. It's just like maintaining things,
Yeah.
and like here, like really having boisterous relationships and getting to have so many artistic opportunities and like growing in all of that and doing the things that like little me would dream about doing. I think it's really happy and impressive and like got to be grateful for it. So
Hmm. So how did you get from Florida to then starting to audition for projects in LA and then eventually booking a show?
yeah, so I had a Florida agent at the time who starting like I got with her when I was in high school, and she covered me for the Southeast, maybe some true LA things that came through and did open calls, which in my naive little brain, I was like, I'm gonna get this.
You never know though. You really never know.
You never know. But then you go back and you watch your audition tape years later and you're like, I mean, I can see we were on to something. Like I joke about it a lot. I auditioned when they did the original casting for Riverdale, and I felt so this is perfect for me because I'm reading for Betty and Betty's blonde and I'm blonde, and it wanted you to play 16, and I think I was like 17 maybe at the time, and I was like, of course I look like I could play 16. Ma'am, someone tell her CW doesn't cast people who look 16 to play 15. But I went back and watched my tape maybe within this last year because I was deleting some stuff back home or moving it to different drives, and it was so cute. It was not it for that project at all, but there was such ambition in her eyes. But yeah, so I had an agent who would submit me on things, and you hear some good feedback and you get some maybes, and you do a lot of student films and such in the meantime to try and like fulfill you and get you experience. And I was very lucky to be in such an incredible acting class where I was really growing a lot. And yeah, and then when I was in college, like I said, I got the audition for Fear, which was a self-tape. Also, you don't get a lot of auditions in the Southeast. That's important to note. You don't. They're fewer, they're farther between. So yeah, that was a wild time. I think I'd had 3 auditions pretty close to each other, and I was like, whoa, we're going big time. And I had heard back from one of them, and it was for the DC show Swamp Thing. And I had done a self-tape, and yeah. Also, not in LA, we've been doing the self-tape game for ages. That's the only game we get to play. So when everything closed and they were like, it's gonna be self-tapes, I was like, that's fine. I'm used to it. But yeah, I auditioned for Swamp Thing, and I'd heard back, and they wanted me to do a callback with new material, self-tape again. And I'd also, while I was doing the callback within that like period of time I had, is when I also did the audition for Fear the Walking Dead. And so then fast forward 2-3 days into that week after they were turned in, and my phone's ringing from my agent, who doesn't call me. Like, that's not normal. I was like, oh, my brain was like, you're getting this other one. You'd already gotten the callback. You knew they already liked you.
Wow.
But no, she was like, hey, you're the choice for Annie for Fear the Walking Dead. And I was like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
She was like, well, it means like they're going to send you up for network approval. And I was like, so I booked it? And she was like, no, you have to get approval first. And I was like, but then I've booked it? And she was like, no, you're not booked technically until you have dates that you're booked for. And I was like, I booked it. Something stupid. And then I got the approval later that day, and I was like, I think getting gas or something, and I was very excited, and I called my mom, and I called like my coach and everything when I got home. It was really awesome. But
Originally, was it for like how big was the role originally?
said recurring, I think it might have been recurring co-star.
That's so exciting. And you only had an agent in Florida at the time.
Yeah, no, just my Florida agent, because that show filmed in Texas.
Oh, cool.
Which they were also like specific on the audition about having an address within a certain number of miles. Like, we'll figure it out.
So you just rented a hotel?
Well, it was one of those things where it's like, I have a cousin who lives out there. We could use that address. But when I don't know if you had to experience this, but in the Southeast, it was very common. You have to say if you can work as a local. They want to know your local hire status. And so I remember very distinctly when I did my self-tape for Fear, because it was to play like 14, 15, they were seeing a wide range of ages. So you had to say your age, what grade you were in, local hire status. And so I was like, hey, I'm Bailey, I'm 5'1", I'm over 18, I'm not in school. And I said, I can work as a local hire to Austin. Because I was like, that's
a lie.
That is not a lie. And I'm not a liar. And I remember when I got to set, and our like executive producer / showrunner, and two of the showrunners and one of our executives / directors came over. He was like, oh my gosh, we saw your self-tape, and we were like, that's it, that's her. And then you said you were over 18, and we were like, perfect. And you didn't have school, and that's perfect. And that you live in Austin, and we were like, it's perfect. And in my head, I was like, I never said I live in Austin.
That is hilarious. So did you stay with like the distant cousin, or?
Okay, so it's supposed to be a 3-episode arc, right? And so the first chunk of time I needed to be out there for some pre-production for like fittings. I was like, I'm gonna do this on my own. I'm an adult, mom. My mom was like, I really think I should go with you. And I was like, Mom. She went with me. It was totally the right call. I flew to Texas. My mom drove, which my mom is crazy and she loves driving. She's driven out to California like twice now to see me. Um, so she drove and we met up there and we hotel hopped based on what areas around Austin we were shooting.
Oh, so they never knew.
Not for that first episode.
Okay.
And then after that first episode, my agent was able to go and get it arranged so that they would cover me staying at the hotel where they housed other talent, which was perfect because then I would get transport to and from hotel to set. Yeah, but that first episode, my mom and I were we were just figuring it out. We were just doing what we needed.
Those are the memories though. Like that's the adventure, you know?
It was crazy, you know, had some downtime, so we'd like go shop or whatever, do different things. But yeah, we'd be like, okay, so the call sheet says you're gonna film near this area. Let me get us a hotel room over there. It was wild.
So wild. Did that experience really solidify your passion for acting and dream of just pursuing this?
It was a huge like reward because I felt like I wanted it, and you audition and you don't hear back or you hear some maybes. And so to like finally have booked my first legit like credited job and go to set and work with incredibly talented people who've worked on a whole slew of things, I was like, well, and everyone was so nice to me, and that made it even all the better. Made some really good relationships, but yeah, it really it felt so special to get to experience, and like there was nothing where I was like, ugh, maybe I don't want to do this. Like, thank goodness. So
Yeah. What was the biggest thing you learned on that set?
how to hold a gun.
Wow.
That's a big one because I remember the first episode my character had a shotgun, and it was like they'd given it to me. It was a prop one, so they didn't need to like go over any safety thing yet. But I remember when they first gave it to me and I was like, I was so afraid they were just gonna like start rolling, and I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, so I just was like, I didn't want anyone to assume I knew.
Yeah.
So like then Lenny James, who plays Morgan, like was showing me some things, and they had like some other people come over, and then later episodes I got to shoot like a little handgun, and that one was real, but like with blanks or whatever. And so I learned how to shoot a gun, but mostly I learned that there's such like an art in like just being present and like listening. I feel like some of those, like Lenny James especially, I remember that first episode, I was like, I just like looking at you in the scene because you're just pulling my focus for some reason. And I just feel like we're having a moment, but it was so great. So many great things.
So after that experience, did you then move to LA or you went back to Florida?
I went back to Florida. We were shooting on and off for the end of November 2018 until I want to say like maybe the end of June 2019. On and off.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I would like come back and forth between it, which was really great. And then, so let's say end of June 2019, had some time at home, and then moved out to LA October 2019. It worked out really well that two of my friends from my acting class were also like wanting to move at the same time. So we were all able to do it together and like find a place. And again, funny enough, my Florida agent had started connecting me with someone that they had a mutual client with in LA who was just kind of like moonlighting as like an agent. Like nothing was signed, but like, you know, they were submitting me, and like it was like understood there was like a rapport. And my Florida agent had sent me an audition for another DC show called Doom Patrol that was being local casting because it shoots in Atlanta. And I sent her my tape back and I'd copied him on it, and he had said, this is incredible. I'm going to send this to the LA team right now. And then he's calling me and he's like, they want you here for producer callbacks on Monday. And I was like,
Oh my gosh.
I was like, okay, I wasn't planning to make my move that weekend booked.
Wow.
So
That's amazing. And then you booked that.
no, I didn't.
Okay.
It's really cool.
But it got you to LA quicker, which I'm sure
Yeah.
was so
Yeah.
exhilarating.
And it really it was a moment that really put into perspective, and I bring it up sometimes. Um, there are two games being played, and it's a weird thing of like you have to know that, but you also like have to not bother yourself with that because I auditioned for that through the Southeast. That LA person had spoken to me and invited me to producer callbacks before my agent in Florida had even said got it and uploaded to casting.
Yeah.
There are two races, like anything that may be being run in your local area, Atlanta, Louisiana, I don't know. There also is like there may be other factors at play, but yeah, I didn't get it, but I was like, whoa, this is so cool. I got to like go in person to like I think it was like the Warner Brothers.
Wow, that's so cool.
Yeah.
And then you moved to LA end of 2019 and then pandemic. So did
Yeah.
you go back home to Florida?
I didn't. I did for like a month over summer, but that's kind of normal for me now. Like I take a summer trip usually in like my Christmas time trip for certain
Hmm.
to at least go see my parents. So yeah, I went home for like a month in 2020 because I was like, there's nothing to do here in LA. I'm so depressed. But no, I never left and like moved, which I'm very grateful for because I know other people did and like had to. And I remember my manager just being like, just hang in there. Like, no, I swear things are gonna pick up any day now. And I was like, yeah, any day now. I'm an eternal optimist. So I was also the person that like when we were having conversations in our friend group and they were like, this is going till September at least. I was like, I don't know. I just feel like maybe by the end of May, like
That's wonderful though. I mean that's great.
yeah.
What has surprised you most about living in LA?
The pace of the industry here, which I feel like is yeah, in some ways different because of advancements in contracts now. But yeah, like before everything shut down, I remember I even got like a next day in-person audition that comes in at like 8 p.m. the night before. Like you gotta be there. And I was happy to be there and I went and I had a great time. Um, but yeah, like the pace in that sense, or even in some different ways, like a little over a year ago, I booked FBI International and the speed at which it went from, okay, you're the choice, you're approved, you leave for Europe in 2 days. I was like, yeah,
You
okay.
filmed in Europe?
Yeah.
Wow, that is so cool.
That was wild. That was 3 weeks in Budapest by myself.
Was that like the best time of your life?
It was really high up there. I'm such an extrovert that I'm like, and it was so hard a little bit in some ways. Again, minor things in the grand pyramid of it, the enjoyment of it all. But I had what I called like dead hours because it's like 9 hours ahead from LA
Wow.
and 6 hours ahead from anyone I know on the East Coast of the country. So there would be dead zones during the day where I was like, I have no one to text, to talk to. And it was like I didn't want to go too far and like do too much because the COVID of it all, you don't want to get sick.
Mm. Yeah.
I don't want taken to happen being out and about in a foreign country by myself. But it was so beautiful. I tried like so many different foods and I did like my little bit of sightseeing and had like a really special experience. And I was like, that's crazy. Getting flown to travel when you're a SAG member, I don't know everything my dues go towards, but I'm very grateful for that.
What is the best advice you've ever received?
Advice. I don't know. I feel like I have like little mantras. Like I think it's still in my Instagram bio, but my coach really back in Orlando, she had brought something up that I really love and connected to, which was, it's the journey and not the destination. which I think is very important because I think you need to like sit in your why, like why you want to do something, why you want to pursue something. If you want to be famous, I promise you there are like there's probably an easier way to do it. Like
Yeah.
but yeah, and that everything in its time, what's meant for you can't pass you by, which I think is like a hard one too, because I feel like as actors, sometimes you get an audition, you get really attached to it because you know this project's going to be amazing or this would be exactly like what I want to work on. And I don't like the advice of like, don't care about it because like I feel like you should
Yeah.
care. It's just like a weird balance of like, well, if it was meant for me, then I would have heard something, but I don't know.
Totally. Well, that beautifully leads into the next question, which is, what is your why as an artist?
I just love performing. I feel very at home. Um, and it just brings me a lot of joy. Like I feel like that's like the simple version of mine. I know some people have different experiences where they're like, I'm very shy and so this is the way that I express myself differently. I was like, I'm not shy. That's not something I struggle with. But I love entertaining people. I love making people laugh. My friends joke. There's two of my friends that they make this joke a lot. Sometimes when I'm in my groups of people and I'm being my fun self and I tell a joke and people laugh at it, I kind of look at everyone laughing at me and I take it in because I like being funny and like entertaining and bringing laughter and all that joy.
Mhm.
That's probably my biggest why. It's like the most exciting thing to for me that I pursue. And it's like I didn't know I always loved it and knew I wanted to do it. But there's so many things I had an interest in as a kid in the sense of like not so much other hobbies, like this was it, but I was very into my academics and I remember my honors biology teacher freshman year when I like genetics and all that is so interesting to me and he was like, "Wow, so like what do you think you want to do?" And I was like, "I'm going to be an actor." And he was like, "Oh." And I was like, that's what this noggin's going to." So,
Wow.
I don't know.
And so that I don't want to say lack of support, but that can't think of the word.
It was like subverting expectations, right?
Skepticism, that just never threw you off at all. You're just like, well, this is what I'm doing, and that's it.
No, and like I totally understood where he was coming from. Like I was getting A's on tests and like being a nerd and like taking an interest in these things and it's like, wow, like what do you think you want to do with all this? And it's like
Right.
be an actor. People would ask me, what do I want to do with my college degree? And I was like, nothing.
Well, I'm sure you learned so much that you're now applying to your life and career, right?
Like I've learned things that like I've taken with, but most people when they ask those questions, they're like, what job are you gonna pursue? And like, how is this degree gonna help you? And I was like, y'all, I'm getting in, I'm getting out. I'm going to LA. I'm gonna be an actor. And like it's just I'm very blessed too in the sense of like I'm very happy to bet on myself. Like I don't have that doubt of like, well, what if?
Hmm.
Like I had an ex-boyfriend, well, now an ex-boyfriend, but the person I was seeing when I was in college was like, well, what if, like, how long would you really do this if nothing happens? Like, of course, I support you and, it's going to go well and you're going to go to LA and book things, but like, how long until you would like call it quits if you didn't? And I was like, that's not something I consider. Like,
Hmm.
if I have to get a survival gig, I have to get a survival gig, but I don't think there will ever be a time where I'm going to want to do anything but this. So,
I admire that so much, and I think that's a really, really incredible, necessary quality to have. That just like, yeah,
certainty, I don't know. I just feel very
yeah,
certain.
that's amazing, and that's, I'm sure, a huge factor of why you're successful.
Thank you. And it's like I love the casting process and like the little bit I've gotten to see and help with that. But I also know I don't think I could ever have my cup filled completely by that. Because
Yeah.
like sometimes when actors are up there and I'm like in my head I'm like, you're not getting it. Just let me do it. Hold on. Can I just do it really quick? I know I'm not a 40-year-old Black woman you're looking to cast. Can I just show you the scene? So
I mean, in my experience of being on the other side, it's mind-blowing how much you learn.
I learned so
Right.
much by watching auditions when I get that opportunity. I'm very lucky that I am connected with people who let me do that.
Mhm.
People I've gotten to meet. I had auditioned for Jenny and Monica at the beginning of 2020 for a Disney Channel movie. And that was like when I first bumped into them in LA, and I was like, wait, we kind of know each other. And we realized it was from a casting search they did in Orlando at
Wow. How funny.
my coach's studio in Orlando. And at my coach's prompting and setting it up, I was their reader for that session. So that's
Oh.
yeah.
Uh-huh.
They were like, oh, do you want to be our reader sometimes? And I was like, yeah. And I got their email, XYZ. I didn't get that Disney Channel movie. Sad. I did get a call back. I did get to go to the Disney office. That was cool. Fast forward, the rest of the casting got put on pause, right? Because of the pandemic. Fast forward to like later fall, the end of that year, they'd asked me to come on for some sessions, and they phrased it in a way where they're like, "Are you okay with this?" And I was like, "Yes, I can be the reader for the project I didn't book." But it was Zoom sessions with everyone in the room, and you learn so much when you hear how people respond to certain things when they like sometimes talk about, what they're feeling. I don't usually get to be a part of those too much because by the time everyone's gone, they're like, "All right, thanks, Bailey." And I'm like, "Dang." Um, I did get the compliment from Judy Taylor, who I'm not anymore, I believe, but was like head of Disney
Yeah.
Channel or like Disney for their casting stuff. And she was like, "Oh, thank you so much, Bailey. You were just fantastic today. You were so talented. Like it
Oh.
really made a difference." And I was like, I don't even care that I didn't even book the movie now. Like, ha 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 ha. Judy Taylor said I'm talented. I'm gonna write that in my diary.
Oh, that's amazing. This conversation has been so wonderful. I'm so glad that we got to actually meet in this way.
Is it over? No.
My favorite question that I always end with, what do you want your legacy to be?
I I want to be like sunshine. I just want to make people's days a little bit brighter. That's what I want. I like being a little sunshine in people's life. So if that can be my legacy and good people when they speak my name have fond things to say and good things to say, that's enough. If we can throw in maybe an acting award, that'd be cool. But also like I'm happy to just be able to be out here and pursue what I love. And if I can make a living off of it, that's like checking so many boxes.
Well, I mean, I'm sure everyone who knows you would say that you already have that impact. So,
Thank you.
um,
We could do
is there,
another hour.
what? And I know we can talk forever. Is there anything that we didn't get to that you wanted to talk about or share?
Doing a CBS pilot. That was
Amazing.
incredible.
Do you know when or if that's going to be?
That was last year. I booked it, shot it last year. It didn't go to series, but it was so special, and it's something I like hold on to really in my heart because I'm like, I did this, and this
Uh,
is something that like actors dream of, and I'm getting to have this accomplishment at I was 23, turned 24, and it's really beautiful because something I've also picked up from people is like if it's happened once, it'll happen again.
yeah,
And
totally.
it's like knowing you've like crossed that threshold, that you're capable of that threshold means like you're going to welcome like that's going to circle back and it's going to happen for you again. But that was really cool. That was wild. Getting to like have like feeling like I had a voice in like the creation of something, cuz usually when I go to fittings, I'm like, I'm like, I don't care, like whatever you guys want. And I remember I was at the fitting for that and they were like, "What do you think of this one?" And I was like, what do you mean? And they're like, well, do you like it? And I was like, it's not my favorite option. She was like, done, take it off. I don't even want to photograph it if you don't like it. And I was like, shut your mouth. No. No. That one was so cool though. I loved it. That one was in Oregon. Very fun.
Wow, congratulations. That's incredible.
Thank you. And it was all, again, remote because self-tape to Zoom session. And one of those Zoom sessions where afterwards I was like, I mean, I did what they asked me to, I did what they asked me to do.
Uh-huh.
I do have a video. I recorded myself before I went
I
on
do
to-
that all the time.
and I was talking to myself and I was like, you're gonna get this. I was like, if you don't, that's okay, but this one's yours to get.
And then did you watch that video after you got
Yay. So it's like it was very, very special. But yeah, that one was really fun. It was an example also of like how everything fits together in different ways you're not aware of. Because like I read for one role and I got pinned, which was like, oh my gosh, I got pinned for series regular. Whoa.
Mhm.
And then they're like, hey, you're still pinned, but they want you to read for her best friend now. And I was like, okay. And ended up having to do 2 different versions of that because they didn't know which way the character was going. But they're like, you're pinned and like the creator loves you. And I was like, wow. And my team had called me and they were like, hey, we just really feel like this role is like the role for you. And I
Uh-huh.
think they probably knew that like chemistry sessions or whatever were moving on the other one. And I was like, yeah, sure. Like this role is fine by me. Like twist my arm. You want me to be this role instead? Like, I don't care.
Uh-huh.
And it was interesting though, because I felt like when I got the original information that the character was the first audition, it's like this character is so much like me.
Mhm.
And then when we when fast forwarding and getting to like the table read after booking it, the girl who booked it was incredible
Mm.
and played it so differently. And we talked about it.
Uh-huh.
Hers was so much more like grounded and like here, whereas like I'm such a here person. And I
Uh-huh.
was like, oh, I was like, I mean, yeah, I did not do that. Like, but now I get to do what I like to do. So when people like ask what my strengths are when I take like casting director classes and things like that, I'm like, funny friend. If you ever need a funny friend, that's I love like Emma Stone types and even some Haley Steinfeld quirkiness, and let me be your funny friend.
Love it. Well, now anyone listening knows where to go if you need a
Yeah.
funny call a Bailey.
Want me to be a funny friend. So
Thank you so much for doing this.
thank you. It's so funny when you asked me to do this, you had just posted something about it recently, and I was like, I wonder if I could ever be on that. Like maybe
Really?
yeah, I was like, maybe I should ask Julia. And then I kid you not, a week later you asked me and I was like, I did this. I manifested this. So
Oh, that is so cool. That makes me so happy that you even like thought that or felt that way.
I felt so honored. I was like, I'm gonna be in such good company. Like, this is a whole thing.
Oh, I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled. Well, I'm so excited to share this.
Yeah, let's get like coffee and then we'll talk about you or something.
No, I love these conversations. It's like I love just I don't know, I love just learning about people and their journeys and no, this was so fun. Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate your time and just, sharing your story.
This has been Behind the Resume with Julia Marley.